What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we are working on a starter for the welding machine tonight. If you're not working on a welding machine, this still may be some helpful information because it basically works the same way on most vehicles, tractors, any kind of equipment that has a starter on it. It's basically the same scenario. So I bought this welding machine from an auction about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, I bought two of them. And from day one, this one here has always had a problem with sometimes it'll start fine and sometimes it would not even try to engage the starter. But I could pull the side panel off of it and I could stick a screwdriver across. This is the old starter right here. I could stick a screwdriver from the terminal that engages it across to the battery terminal here, and it would start. And so I thought that I had a bad connection right here because it was all corroded up. And there's a little screw right here that I could not get out. It's rusted up in there. So what I did was I cut the wire off and I soldered the wire onto here. Put it back together and it worked fine for, I don't know, quite a while. But seemed like every now and again it would not start. And it wouldn't click, it wouldn't do anything. It was like it wasn't getting a signal from the ignition switch over here. And so I traced the wires down, looked at it, and I took the side panel off of the other machine over here and tested with a meter. I was getting about the same amount of voltage drop on the wire here that goes to it. It seemed like it was less voltage than it should be. But I don't remember what the voltage drop was, but it was quite a bit. But both machines were testing the same. But this one would start sometimes it wouldn't. The other one always starts with no problem. However, the one difference is this is not an OEM starter. This is an aftermarket starter right here. And the other machine has an OEM starter on it. So I wonder if something was wrong with the starter, or maybe that the OEM starter has a little different solenoid on it that takes less amperage to engage, something like that. So anyway, I said, well, maybe this starter is just, there's something wrong with it. I don't know. It's aftermarket. It's a cheap aftermarket starter. These starters like this, I bought another one similar to it right there and put on there for about $100. The OEM starter from Dutz is probably like $600 or something. I didn't even check the price, but I did kind of Google around, and they're pretty expensive. But I'm sure it's a better quality. But anyway, I got the new starter in, and I put it on here. And as you see right there, I got everything connected up, hooked my little wire here up that I had soldered on there, put a ring terminal on it, hooked it up here. And I go around to the front of the machine around there, and I hit the ignition switch, and it goes click one time, one loud click. And it goes click. I let off of it, click. Well, I started rapidly doing it, and it'd go click, 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 and then it engaged, and it cranked. So that's more than this starter here was doing. This one wouldn't even click the way it was. So anyway, I let it sit for a while, come back, and try to start it right up. Okay, no problems. So I said, well, okay, I'll put the side cover and everything back on it. Got it ready to go. Came back a little later, tried to start it, went click. And so I was kind of thinking maybe there was something wrong with this starter. And I almost started to see about getting them to send me a new one, another new one. But they had the paperwork in the box that this starter here that I bought said it was tested and everything. In the meantime, I load tested the battery right here. The battery that was in here did test a little bit weak, so I replaced the battery. This is another battery that I had over there that's in good shape. Came out of something else, but it load tests good, like 700 something cranking amps. The one that I took out was only testing about 500. So anyway, I did all that. I checked everything out again with a meter, and every time, you know, you take a screwdriver, if you jump from this terminal to here to engage it, it would start. But when I turn the key up there, it would go click intermittently. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it wouldn't. So what I've decided is is either there's corrosion or something in the wire, which I've checked and I can't find, or there's corrosion in the ignition switch, which I've had this whole panel up here off and checked all this stuff with a meter, and I cannot find the problem. I've tested this machine here, everything tests out. Like I say, the only difference I've found is with the starter. Maybe that starter, the solenoid don't pull quite as hard on the wiring, and you know, it starts, but that's a higher dollar starter. So I don't know. So there's either issue going on here I have not found, or this aftermarket Chinese starters is requiring a little bit more amperage than what the factory wire and ignition switch can really handle, and it's a intermittent problem that sometimes it starts, sometimes it won't. So what I've done, I had a relay over there that I bought years ago for a headlight switch, or I mean a fog light kit or something other. I don't exactly remember what I even bought this for, but had it laid over there, and I got it out and I connected this up, and this is kind of like, you could use like a starter solenoid, like a Ford starter solenoid, or like a Warren winch solenoid, or that sort of stuff to do this as well. But it takes a whole lot less amperage to engage this little relay right here than it does this relay. Or that's basically all this is a bigger relay than that. So we're using a smaller relay to engage a bigger relay or a solenoid in order to start it. And what I did was, I took this stud here on the starter, I found a 10mm nut over there and a ring terminal. This is your ground, put that on there. This here was the wire here that went straight to here. I cut it, butt splice goes to here, and then goes through the relay, comes to here, and then this here is going straight to your hot right there. I did not have a ring terminal that large for that size wire here, so I just, you know, wrapped it around there. It's not the best way to do it, but hey, it works. Put a zip tie on it, zip tied it over here. So what that is doing is that's taking the signal from the ignition switch, even though it may be not a full current signal, and it's engaging this relay right here, and this relay is applying the power to here off of this solenoid right here off the main wire, just like if you were taking a screwdriver and jumping across right here. So that's giving this solenoid full 12 volts from here, and this here may not be getting the full 12 volts. See, this may be only getting 7 or 8 or whatever, because there's resistance in this wire. Either as I say, there's bad connection somewhere I have not found, or whatever the case, I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to go to replacing all these expensive parts on here, and you know, it may be something with the starter. Being a cheaper starter, this solenoid may be a different design than the OEM and may draw a little bit more amps, and it may be that the wiring on this machine is just not up to the amperage draw. I don't know, but I do know that it does work doing this right here. So if you're working on an old piece of equipment that you know, or older vehicle, that you may run into this problem, as something to check. And it's hard to check this with a meter when it's doing it, because you got to have somebody holding the meter, and then sometimes it only does it for a split second, and you got to have somebody trying to crank it at the same time. But anyway, I've got this all hooked up right here to where it is working with no issue. I'm just gonna see if I can bump the starter. Let's see if you can hear it. Yeah, you can hear it. So yeah, that's working like it's supposed to. Not going to start it up because it's late at night, and don't want to wake the neighbors up. They're probably already not too happy with me because I had it running earlier. But anyway, so it is working like it's supposed to, and that's a quick little fix. Hopefully it'll continue to work like that. I just figured I'd share that with you guys, and might help somebody out. If you have an older vehicle that's, you know, problems with the wiring or ignition switch or whatever, and you can't trace down the problem, you know, you're frustrated with it, and if you take a screwdriver and you jump the solenoid on the starter and it cranks up, you know you got a wiring problem. This is something you might can try and see if it works for you. and may get you back going. So as I say, you know, I would like to have it without this, but I don't know without. I don't want to spend $600 on a starter and then, you know, a couple $100 buying switches and stuff and all this, because I've pretty well traced the wire out and checked it with a meter, and as I say, I'm just not finding the issue right off. And so that right there will get it to crank and run, so that works for me. So anyway, hope this will help somebody out and be a little demonstration of what you can do there if you have a problem like this. This other starter here may be still good. It may be something, I mean, the solenoid's not that good because you see right there, but it may be some parts in here, so I'm going to hold on to this because this does appear to be the same style Chinese starter that I bought right there for $100 and put on there. So I don't know. I don't think this starter is as good of a quality as the OEM one, but it's also $500 cheaper or whatever. So that's what I'm going to keep on there probably, because I don't want to spend that much on a starter for a welding machine that I don't use all that much.